Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We are happy and excited to host this discussion with you. My name is Michael Abbey. I'm the Assistant Director for the Office of Military and Veterans Affairs here at Notre Dame. And today on Veterans Day, we pause from our regular academic schedules to recognize a group that has made profound sacrifices to our nation. The event, Why I Served, is designed to do more than just thank our veterans. It's about connection and understanding. Our goal is simple. We're here to connect the broader Notre Dame community, students, faculty, staff, and alumni with diverse human experiences behind military service. We hope to answer the questions: what motivates someone to serve? What does that service look like? And how do those experiences shape their path here to and through Notre Dame? We are honored to have one of Notre Dame's own leading this conversation today. Please welcome our moderator, Ken Heckel. Ken is the Sergeant John F. Crowley Director of the Office of Military and Veterans Affairs. He is a 1996 Notre Dame alumnus and retired U.S. Army colonel with 23 years of service. His career included leadership roles as a commander in the 82nd Airborne Division and multiple deployments, earning him the Legion of Merit and multiple Bronze Star medals. Ken not only brings deep operational and strategic experience, but also a strong academic background, having previously served as the Assistant Professor of Economics at West Point. His combined military and educational leadership make him uniquely qualified to lead this discussion. Now, seated beside Ken are three incredible panelists. Oh, please. Was it?
Finance Corps, sir.
Finance Corps.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
Seated beside Ken are three incredible members of our military-connected community. I will give you their name, branch, and affiliation, and program, and then I will turn it over to Ken, who will provide a more detailed introduction for each of them. So first, we have Beth Weber, United States Navy retired, representing the Inspired Leadership Initiative and the Shaw Center, and Rob Parkhurst, United States Navy veteran and Mendoza MBA candidate, and then to Ken's left here is Tyler Beamish, United States Air Force veteran and Juris Doctor candidate at Notre Dame Law School. Yep. Now, before we dive into the deep questions, I want to address the undeniable bias up here. As you can see, being a Navy guy myself, I couldn't help but notice we have inconsequentially stacked the deck in favor of Navy. We have one Army rep, one Air Force rep, and two Navy rep. I figured since the Navy had just had a tough loss to Notre Dame, we had to win something, give them something to win this week. So congratulations to Navy for winning the panelist head count. So with that, though, I'm going to turn things over to Ken to lead today's discussion. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you all for being here. It's a wonderful crowd to have you all here on Veterans Day. Before I introduce our panelists a little bit more in depth and give you more chance to drown them with your rounds of applause, just a couple of moments of gratitude. First, Michael already mentioned today being Veterans Day, so many thanks, gratitude, appreciation for our veterans and their family members who all volunteered to serve our nation. So thank you, veterans who are in the crowd today. Do we have any Marines in the crowd? Okay, so wishing you a happy belated birthday. Yesterday was the Marine Corps' 250th birthday. How about that? And you're looking pretty good for 250, so whatever you're doing, keep it going. Keep it going. And then last, I want to thank our partners in this event, our co-sponsors, the O'Brien Notre Dame International Security Center. So really thankful for all that they do to continue working to recognize our military and veteran community here at Notre Dame, and probably most importantly, the things that we do with the O'Brien Notre Dame International Security Center is efforts to bridge what's known as the civil-military gap that increasingly is growing in our nation. So the separation between those who have served and those who have not, and understanding what that service looks like and gaining an understanding and appreciation for that service. So deeply grateful to Mike Desch, Ian Johnson, many others, and the OnDisc team for co-sponsoring with us today. Round of applause for OnDisc. All right, so I'm going to introduce our panelists a little bit more in depth here because they deserve it. So I'm going to start with Rob. So Rob Parkhurst is a first-year MBA candidate at Mendoza, where he's focused on finance, private equity, and strategic leadership. Before business school, Rob served a decade in the United States Navy with Naval Special Warfare as an intelligence agent, directing operations and managing teams in high-pressure environments across multiple global assignments. As a petty officer first class, Rob's military career included leading intelligence initiatives in support of national security and joint special operations, earning commendations for leadership and operational excellence. Here at Notre Dame, Rob is actively involved in the Student Veterans of America chapter, the MBA Military and Veterans Club, and the MBA Finance Club. He leverages his military experience to bridge leadership, analytics, and business strategy. Rob is passionate about helping fellow veterans navigate the transition from military to business careers and aims to continue his path of service through impactful leadership in the private sector. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Navy veteran Rob Parkhurst. Next up is Beth. So Commander Beth Weber is a lifelong person of service, a third-generation Navy child who went on to serve 20 years as a Navy Nurse Corps officer, leading healthcare teams around the world, including aboard the hospital ship USNS Comfort. After retiring from active duty, Beth continued her dedication to supporting military families as chairman of Naval Services Family Line, the Navy's oldest spouse-led nonprofit. Following her participation in the Inspired Leadership Initiative here at Notre Dame in 2024, Beth made South Bend her new home. Beth now, so there's more, there's more. Beth now serves as a consultant to Notre Dame's Shaw Center for Children and Families, where she helped develop a 10-week mental health and wellness program to support military spouses and build mental health allies within the military community. She also serves on several local boards, including the Oaklawn Foundation, helping advance mental health and community building efforts across the Michiana region. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Navy veteran Beth Weber. Now it's your turn, Tyler. All right. So Technical Sergeant Tyler Beamish served for 11 years in the U.S. Air Force as a combat controller in Air Force Special Operations Command. Across multiple deployments, Tyler attached to other special operations elements as the lead Joint Terminal Attack Controller, directing airstrikes during combat operations. He also performed air traffic control duties at forward airfields, ensuring the efficient movement of personnel and supplies to forward operating bases. Tyler was qualified as a Joint Terminal Attack Control instructor and evaluator, a military free-fall jump master with more than 200 jumps, a combat diver, so up in the air and underwater, this guy, and an FAA-certified air traffic controller. During his service, Tyler was awarded the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, the Air Force Combat Action Medal, and numerous other decorations. Following his military career, Tyler shifted his focus to the legal field to continue his lifelong commitment to service. He is now a JD candidate at the law school and a member of the inaugural cohort of Dean Marcus Cole's Initiative for Leadership and Scholarly Excellence. While still exploring specific areas of practice, his goal after law school is to use his legal education to serve the veteran community, helping ensure those who have served receive the benefits and opportunities they have earned. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Air Force veteran Tyler Beamish. All right, now that we got all that out of the way, we can get into the good stuff. Well, thank you all for being here. We're really honored and glad that you took time out of your day today on Veterans Day to spend time with our community. I'd like to start with a question about service and calling and vocation and the motivation behind your service, if we could. And so this is for all of you. If you could maybe just take a moment and reflect and share with the group your thoughts on this. So Veterans Day is a time to reflect on service. So if you could share with us the motivation or calling or what led you to this vocation to raise your hand and take the oath of service to our nation.
Start with me. Can everybody hear me? Okay. So for me, I graduated high school from a small town in northern Michigan. To be honest, I didn't have a whole lot going on. I went to college, didn't really want to go to college, really wanted to do the military, but I had the parents say, like, you're going to college. So I did that. Always had the military in the background in my mind. But after 2 years of college, I knew that college wasn't right for me. So I started solving and thinking about what I wanted to do in the military. Naturally saw like the Navy SEAL commercial and thought, like, that looks cool, I'm gonna go do that. And I thought, like, I'll see if I can do it. And so I started the process. At the time, funny story, I was in a sling. I had just dislocated my shoulder. I walked into the Navy recruiter's office in a sling and said, hey, I want to be a Navy SEAL, and the guy laughed at me. And so left school, luckily had a family friend of ours that was an Air Force recruiter, and started working with her towards doing this combat control thing, which was the closest thing the Air Force had to being a Navy SEAL. But really, one event did kind of solidify and give me a little bit more motivation, and it's the Boston Marathon bombing happened. While I was leaving school, as I had started the process to enlist, and I just remember seeing police and firefighters run into the dust. Mm-hmm. And it kind of gave me this sense of, I knew I wanted to see if I could do the special operations thing, but it narrowed my focus to, I want to see if I can be the guy that is able to run into the dust. I wanted to see if I could be the person that, when the time comes, like, I can act. So it really became a challenge to myself. And so that kind of set me on the path towards where I ended up.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Talia. This idea of, you just shared running towards the danger, running towards the dust. I mean, many of us have those moments where we see people respond in the face of danger and are called to do the same. So thank you for sharing that. Beth, how about you?
So for me, I know when you guys sent out the question, you asked, is it family, is it duty, or do you have a story? And I guess I have all three.
Yeah, let's
certainly start with, I'm third generation Navy family. My dad joined when I was 9 months of age, and I traveled with him all over the country, all over the world. Lived abroad for 3 years in Taiwan. So, but I went to school. Actually, I went to 3 different high schools, including my senior year. I moved my senior year. So when I was in college in the Southeast, I just didn't know where I wanted to go. And I felt like I didn't want to stay there. My dad had recently retired. I didn't want to move to Arizona. I didn't know anybody there. Although in the military you do become the master of reinventing yourself. I was not ready to do that. So I felt for me it was like going home. And there is kind of this warrior, families within the military that continue to serve. Yeah. And we need more than just the warrior family serving. So my family never gave me any pressure to serve, but when I decided I wanted to explore it, they were very supportive. So my family has, in my immediate family, and then just through marriage, we have close to 200 years of service.
Holy cow.
Now.
Wow.
So it just felt like going home. So when I made the decision, my dad was, on board helping me, not overbearing, but then I just decided to join, one, for a sense of duty, because my family had served. One, I just didn't know where I wanted to go beyond school.
Yeah. So. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that story, the family connection, and that's wonderful. Rob, how about you?
Well, I watched the movie Guardian, and I love that movie. So growing up, I'm from South Bend. Didn't have any, intuition to join the military. Graduated from high school, did a year of college, kind of similar to Tyler here, and was just looking for something a little bit more, a little bit greater. Knew of the Rescue Swimmer program, went and talked to a recruiter, signed up for that, and then just as soon as I signed up, I got back from MEPS, and it was like my life already changed, and I hadn't even left yet. So for me, after I did boot camp, I didn't make it through that school, but I made it through the Intel school, and I really took a lot of time after school, after all of the hustle and bustle of getting prepped for your next 4 to 5 years. I had a lot of self-reflection and got to see okay, everything that I'm doing is a lot bigger than myself, and everything that I'm reading about and working towards, for me at least, was to make sure that my family was like protected and the country was protected. So for me, that was the big sense of service that I got out of it.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful to hear. Each of you, I'm going to go off script here a little bit.
Okay.
So each of you have a little bit different story about what brought you into service, but all of you stayed beyond what, if some of you don't know, especially, in certain services it's a little bit different, and whether you're an enlisted service member or an officer, your term of service is typically defined, right? By an enlisted contract you might enter into, or a commission you might enter into. There's a certain number of years you have to serve. If I remember from what I read from all of your bios and know about you, you all stayed beyond your initial term of service, right? So I'm curious, you've shared your story about what brought you into the military, what attracted you to the military at the start, and those are all different stories. I'm wondering if you could share with the group a little bit about what kept you in the military beyond that kind of first term of enlistment or that first term of service that you had signed up for, kind of knowing what you knew then and the reasons why you came in. And any one of you could take it. I'd love to hear from all three of you about that.
I'll go first. For me, I really wanted to get to NSW. Like, that was my initial goal when I joined. And NSW is Naval Special Warfare. It's the SEAL teams, it's the SWCC teams. It's everyone that they make movies and commercials about. For me, that was the goal. I wanted to do the high-speed thing. And all of the friends that I had made in the first 4 years were also trying to do that. I had a lot of incredible leaders that came from Naval Special Warfare. So for me, it was a pretty easy decision to work every day for 4 years so that I could get that goal. I ended up getting it and loved it. And getting out at 10 years was almost as hard as like choosing to stay in. Like, I wanted to do 20 or 25 or 30.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful. Tyler, how about you?
So for me, you know how like when you're with your friends, they say how much money would it take for you to be able to do this? Well, the Air Force passed that on the re-enlistment threshold, so I decided to do another 4 years. No, I'm kidding. I was just back from my first deployment around the time that re-enlistment was up for me. I wanted to go do more deployments, quite frankly. I really enjoyed that aspect of actually being able to like do the mission. I was with a good group of guys that I didn't want to leave at the time. I wanted to stay close with them, and it just seemed like the right thing to do for me personally at the time. And so, yeah.
I mean, I can go off both of you guys. Definitely, it's the people for me. The people. I'm a people person, and the people and the mission, and just having that next goal in front of you. And the military does provide you with a lot of training. Yeah. You are constantly training, and I think in the civilian workforce, to my understanding, it's just not, you don't have that depth and breadth of training. You're always going to school or learning something. It's a place, if you're a lifelong learner, the military is a great place.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you all for sharing that a little bit more about what kept you in the military. It's interesting, and we all have our own stories of why we came in and why we stayed or why we left. We'll get in a little bit, I think, to your kind of your story of transition, but I thought maybe we'd reflect a little bit on the reality of service maybe for a minute. So a lot of times when we as non-military members think about military service, a lot of it can be informed by what we see on TV, what we see in the movies, what we see in the news, what we read in books, whether they're fiction or nonfiction. There's a certain way that military life is depicted. So I wonder, for the group here that maybe is looking for a deeper understanding of what military life is really like or was like for you, could you describe, and this is for each of you, maybe there's one singular profound experience that occurred during your time in uniform, your time in service, whether it was challenging, whether it was rewarding, whether it was humorous maybe, that would illustrate for our group here what military life was really like for you and your family. Anyone can start.
I'll go. For me, kind of one of my defining moments was I've been out a long time, so I'm going to date myself on this, but these experiences stayed with me. So, when 9/11 happened, I was at Navy Medicine headquarters and looked across, and the Pentagon was on fire. So the next day I deployed on the hospital ship. So the UNS Comfort is kind of my defining moment. And I went on a series of 3 deployments in 18 months. One was for a national disaster to New York City, 9/11. We went there to, our mission changed. We were going to, provide health care, and then we provided mental support. And then a year later, I went on a NATO mission to the Baltic and got to go to Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, some really great countries in the summer. It was great. It was great. So it was a NATO mission. They were applying for NATO, so we got to do some really great things on the Baltic. And then flash forward 6 months later, was OIF, OEF. So we went from a NATO mission into, a conflict.
Yeah.
So all 3 times, they were different missions, and they were a different set of teams that you had to do a lot of team building and get people ready to rise to that occasion. So for me, my deployments really were kind of my capstone, cornerstone thing that I point back to, and this was all within 18 months.
Yeah. Wow, that's.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Beth. I mean, so for those that don't know, the Comfort is like it's like a floating hospital,
Yeah,
basically,
it is,
right?
it is.
Yeah. So, best.
1,000 beds, 50 ER beds, 50 ICUs, 20 OR beds. It can 800 to 1,000 people on
People
board
at one
to
time, yeah.
care. Yeah.
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 And to do that in 3 different locations,
Yes.
3 different types of missions,
Yes.
3 different teams, as you described, that is a profound experience that kind of shapes and defines and maybe shares with the group a little bit what that experience was like for you. So thank you for doing that, Beth. Rob, how about you?
For me, you brought it to like people see it from the movies and stuff like that. I feel like I had some of the movie experience, and then on the humorous side, for me at least, you find humor in humorless situations, and you seek it out as hard as you can. So for me, the military has been like the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, the hardest I've ever laughed in my life. In Maine, -20, just in your underwear, camping with a bunch of like 18-year-old kids, don't know what they're doing there. And then it's also like as serious as it can get. So for me, I'll like talk on the humorous side. I've like mopped outside while it rains. It's super crazy, right? I've vacuumed ceilings. I've like weeded a specific type of weed every day for 40 days. But doing that stuff, you're so mad, you don't understand why you're doing it. And then fast forward to my second enlistment, all that stuff built like structure, and it built patience and resiliency. And to me, I'm very grateful for all of that stuff because I can look back at the laughs and look back at the cries, and it's built me into who I am today.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I was going to ask what you learned from finding humor in the humorless, and you just told us, right?
Yeah.
Like it's those traits of patience, of structure, of resilience, of grit, of determination, that you might not realize you're growing from them and learning from them in the moment, but when you have the opportunity to reflect on it, you see that. And I wrote down here, finding humor in the humorless, also known as embrace the you-know-what,
Yeah.
right? In times like that. So thank you for sharing that.
The Notre Dame football game was no problem for him.
Right, yeah. Standing outside in the rain and the snow and the sleet and the cold, no problem. Embrace the you-know-what. All right. Tyler, how about you?
Yeah, so in terms of like the movie aspects, I will admit that there are some movies that get it more right than others. And I went to see the movie Warfare. I don't know if anybody's seen it. It's probably the closest rendition to a movie of my generation that I've seen. And it starts off, if you haven't seen it, I swear I'm not spoiling it. It starts off with a bunch of guys getting ready to go on a mission, and they're dancing to the Call Me Maybe music video. And that's probably the most accurate thing I've ever seen. And then it like cuts really quickly to them stone cold quiet, patrolling through a street, going in to take down a building. And that stark contrast is kind of very realistic. You learn in the military you have to be able to flip a switch. There's go time and then there's downtime. And you learn to really, really enjoy the downtime. And I think that's the one thing that most movies kind of omit, is the camaraderie and the fun stuff that you get in the downtime. And kind of like a funny story. So going through training early in my career to become a combat controller, we were in Hell Week, which is 5 days of very little sleep, kind of living on your feet with a 60-pound ruck on your back. And it was 30 degrees out, raining in North Carolina. We had lost half of our class already, and we were in the middle of a ruck, and one of my buddies just goes, "This sucks." And all of us started laughing. All of us were so tired. It was so comical. Just the simple, "This sucks." And it made the rest of the week go that much smoother, just because we all laughed. And so those little moments, kind of like what Rob was hinting at, that's the thing that doesn't get caught in movies, but those are like the most fond memories that you get from your time in the military.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. We all have stories like this of their humor or their moments, and as I'm sure as you're telling the story, you can literally see the facial expressions of all your team members. Like, you can recall it in that vivid a detail. That's how much of an impact it had on you in shaping that experience for you in the moment, and then just kind of thinking about how, as Rob mentioned, those skills or those traits, those perspectives of grit and determination and discipline and teamwork and camaraderie, all kind of come together. So thank you all for sharing that. Maybe we'll transition a little bit and talk. You each have three really individual and unique backgrounds and experiences in your military service. So I'd like to allow each of you a little bit of time to share about your own experience and the work that you did. So maybe Beth, I'll start with you. So a unique perspective as a veteran, a nurse, longtime Navy spouse. How did your 20 years as a Navy nurse, followed by supporting your husband Tim's 33-year career, change your view on the full scope of the military sacrifice made by the entire military family, extending beyond just the service member, him or herself, but including spouses and children and extended family who are all kind of part of the military family?
It was interesting. I retired and then my husband stayed in, and I would have to say that the job or the role of a military spouse or a military family member is the hardest. Yeah. It's very challenging, and they definitely deserve to be acknowledged and supported on Veterans Day. When my husband, it's an interesting story. My husband came to me. I had done some deployments. My husband hadn't, and he came to me and says, "Hey, I'm deploying." And I said, "Well, it's about time they found you," because he hadn't. I know that's but you got to be comical, right? Sometimes, and he did. He needed to deploy, but he went on a 15-month deployment, which is hard. We don't have the good fortune of kids, but it is hard having him away. He did 3 months of training, and then he was gone for almost a year. He got to come home for 2 weeks. But yeah, it's hard. It's challenging to send them away to Afghanistan and not know what's going to happen. Also, my sister's husband is Army Special Forces. He did a 30-year career as well. And in a drop of a moment, similar to what Tyler and Rob said, is the code would happen and he would be off to Afghanistan. And she's home with 3 toddlers, So I really has taught me to understand the sacrifices that I'm going to use this platform for military families and spouses and family members who have to change schools, go to 3 different high schools, or have to have a really good job, but then you get transferred, and those are hard moments. Or families having to decide if they're going to accompany the active duty member or stay behind because their son is really good at lacrosse and they don't have lacrosse in Okinawa, Japan. Yeah. So I would take this moment, having the full perspective and having all the roles where I was a Navy junior, served for 20 years, supported my husband going forward, supporting other family members, that I really want to highlight the role of military families and spouses.
Yeah. Well, thank you for highlighting that, Beth. being a veteran myself, it is I mean, I'm absolutely certain that the untold story of the military service is that of the military family, and specifically the spouse. The service member gets to wear the uniform, show the ribbons, wear the rank, tell the war stories, tell the sea stories, but the real champions of the military family are the spouses. And so thank you for sharing that perspective. I appreciate it. And I know if Jen were here, she would appreciate it as well. So.
And Katie.
Yeah. And Katie as well.
And Michael's wife, Katie.
So maybe Tyler, switch to you and give you a chance to reflect a little bit. Beth, thank you for sharing that. So you've having experienced combat in your time in the Air Force, you ultimately chose to pivot to law. You had a little bit of a break in service. You worked at a law firm before coming to Notre Dame. How does your commitment to serving and improving the community manifest now that you are working toward a career in law instead of high-risk, high-op-tempo operations and deployments?
Yeah. So for me, I'm not going to lie, it took some real time away from the military to answer that question.
Yeah.
It's readily apparent that you have a purpose, that you are part of something bigger than you when you're in the military, you're deploying, you're going on missions, you're doing the thing. And it's a really weird experience when 1 week, your last week in the military, your Tuesday morning is boring, so you decide to go jump on a skydive with the team that's out skydiving at the DZ, and then the next week you're sitting in a cubicle reading a document as a paralegal. And so I struggled to find that why am I doing this? Like I was serving then and now I'm not. And it's actually, I didn't find that answer until probably like a month ago. So the military and veterans clinic at the law school just opened up. And I knew that this was a service, like helping veterans get their benefits is a big deal. I went through a struggle of my own trying to navigate the VA. And they were looking for applicants. And I sent just a link to the application out, and I saw that like 50 of my buddies that were close teammates immediately jumped on like, I need help. And so seeing how much of a need there is for that, it really kind of like focused me in on, you can use the legal career as a pathway to service. And even though I'm not, like pulling security for my buddy, blocking through a door, I'm helping them in other ways, because you don't always have to serve overseas. You can serve here at home. And that goes for helping friends, helping your community, helping teammates across the board. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Tyler. I appreciate you reflecting on that a little bit and being vulnerable enough to kind of share that part of your story. And I'm so happy that in the last month you found that opportunity that allows you to give back to those service members that are in need. And I know the Veterans Law Clinic at the law school has been a huge initiative for Dean Cole. And we're happy to have the director here in the crowd, Caleb Stone, right here. Everyone say hello to Caleb. Thank you for being here. And so a lot of good is to come from the law school through Notre Dame to support our veterans that have these needs for a myriad of legal support to help them maintain that quality of life and excel in times after service. So thank you for that. Rob, I guess we'll give you a shot at it last. So 9 years in the Naval Special Warfare Intelligence, now you're focused on your MBA. So how do the discipline, communication, and strategic decision-making skills from the intelligence world apply to bridging the gap between the commercial and the government sectors for you?
Yeah, when I got out of the military, I got out in March of 24. I didn't know what I was going to do while I was waiting to hear back from schools. Fingers crossed, it was this one, so we moved back to South Bend, we moved into the Foundry, and then I applied kind of backwards, but a lot of faith, a lot of prayers. Yeah. So I worked for a couple companies, Trek 10, and then I worked at Industry Labs, where I was a government consultant, basically. A lot of the stuff that I learned in the Navy, like strong communication skills, a lot of research, a lot of planning, that stuff absolutely helped me while I was working at both of those companies, but I found it was the veteran network actually that has paid dividends over that summer, and then as I continue now while I'm in my MBA program. It's opened up a lot of doors. It's also opened up my eyes, like, okay, maybe banking isn't exactly what I want to do because I'm not getting that veteran experience. So it's allowed me to look at jobs like consulting that has a wide array of options. It's allowed me to continue looking at the DoD space and the private sector. And everything that I'm doing right now is to get into a business that I feel I can continue to give back to the veterans.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And having come in contact with the military veteran community, specifically that's in Mendoza, that you found to be so important to you, I mean, I can share that's one of the most vibrant communities of military veteran students that we have here on campus. So we're super grateful for the community you guys are building. You got many of your colleagues out here listening to your story, and they share many parts of it. So thank you for finding that and being such a part of it. Maybe we'll get into kind of one more topic, and then I would like to allow time for the group to ask you all questions and maybe get to know you a little bit more as well. So this section focuses a little bit on the transition, which Tyler started talking about a little bit. So maybe Beth, if you want to kind of take a shot at this. So you go from being a Navy nurse, Rob, for you as a Naval Intelligence Specialist, to being a student in ILI, a student in the MBA program. Beth, for you, eventually a staff member in the Shaw Center. How do you reflect on your sense of identity change during that transition time? What was the hardest part about it? Trading in your uniform for whatever it is you were going to wear to class, or like, how do you feel that transition was for you? Biggest identity shift, biggest identity change, and how did you kind of work through that? Maybe Beth, start with you.
I mean, it's definitely challenging when you're Tyler and Rob both spoke to it, when you're part of a team and then you're not on the team, and you miss it. And I've gone through it. I've seen my husband go through it. He was in a very big job, and he was a retirement speaker, and he had retired and then was a retirement speaker, and everybody walks right by you sometimes. It's just kind of interesting, how your identity can switch in a moment. But honestly, I've had some time to kind of reflect upon this. That's what they need to do. You've trained your replacement, right, to carry on in your absence. So as hard as it is, that's what you want them to do, to go on and to carry out the mission. But I think just not being part of a team is really hard. But then I just kind of leaned on some of the skills that I learned as a Navy brat or junior. It's an opportunity to reinvent yourself, to do something different, to lean into the situation. And I think you probably did each and every time you moved into a different unit or a different command. Those are skills we've learned. I mean, we can network and work a room. Even here in South Bend, they're like, wow, you know everyone. I'm like, yeah, these are skills I've honed in the military, is that you gotta treat it like you're a tourist, or South Bend like you're a tourist. You have to treat it like you're the new kid on the block and just go in there and start that conversation. So those skills really have always served me well, have helped me just go up and start a conversation and start making connections, learning the resources and the lay of the land. So that's kind of my thoughts in a nutshell. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Rob, how about you?
For me, for the transition piece, I'm still kind of working on it, pretty fresh, just a year out. But having moved here earlier, I found that even though I'm separated from the Navy, I didn't do the reservist thing. I still found all of the military people that I had the last 10 years here. So like people like Alex Kent, Patrick, Michael, yourself. The university has the best veteran network, not just for getting you a job or for helping you introduce you to somebody else, but they hold the values of the university, and that was the primary reason why I wanted to come here. So for me, transitioning, although hard to fully separate, I found that maybe I don't need to fully separate, and I can continue to learn as much as I can as I transition so that I can champion the next group of people that are coming out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I had a couple other questions on here, and you guys kind of nailed them, nailed them all. But I did have an extra one I wrote down, so maybe we'll get to it. But it's wonderful to hear through you describing your stories of your transition experience. And Rob, you mentioned like I don't have to necessarily. It's not like a separation, right? It's not like a break from one identity to another. If you find wherever it is you're going, whether it's Notre Dame or if you're going to work in the public sector or private sector, if you find a community within that new organization that you're entering into that resonates with you in terms of some of the experiences you had or the values that you had in your military service, it makes that movement to the next phase of life a little bit smoother. So I'm so happy that each of you have seemed to find that community here, that network here at Notre Dame. Beth, through ILI with you, and then ultimately the work that you're doing in the Shaw Center is just absolutely wonderful, supporting military families. Rob, as active as you are in the MBA club and giving back, the Military and Veterans Club, and I love your story of transition. You took a risk and you came back to South Bend without knowing whether you were going to be part of the Notre Dame student community or not. But I would guess you felt pretty confident that given the opportunity, you'd be a wonderful fit. You'd be able to really be a great part of the community. So it might have felt like a big risk at the time, but it was probably one, I'm sure in the back of your mind, you had confidence that would come to fruition. So I'm super happy for that. And Tyler, for you, coming to the law school and then finding this connection through the Veterans Law Clinic, I'm wonderful to feel that you found a sense of purpose and a home there too. My last question then became, I guess I kind of set it up for you, but I'd like to hear it from each of you, and then we've got plenty of time to open it up for questions for the group. When we all serve, we all have a sense of purpose and we have our why, right? We can all tell people about our why. Now that you've kind of moved on from military service, some more recently than others, I wonder if you can just, each of you, share with the group what is your sense of why now?
That's a really good question, and it's one that I like that you framed it after the fact, because it's something that changes so much from the time you think you know your why before you show up at basic training to looking back, you're like, that was not even remotely my why. And I don't want to come across as cynical, but I think before I joined the military, there was this drive of when people would ask me, why you enlisted? I want to serve my country. I didn't know what that meant. Yeah. It was almost like for me, looking back, it was somewhat selfish motive of, again, I wanted to see if I had what it takes. That was my real motivation. Going through the re-enlistment process, you ask yourself again, why am I doing this? And I realized my why had evolved to, I care about the people around me. And I knew that if it wasn't me going on the plane over for the next deployment, it was going to be the guys after me. And I wasn't ready to accept that yet. There's a certain thing of, if I feel like I'm the right person for the job, I should be the one there. And then as I continued on in my career, and I had accomplished most of what I wanted to accomplish in the military, I asked myself again, as it's time to choose between getting out of the military, going to law school, or staying in. And really, the unwritten rule, for those of you that don't know, once you hit about the 10-year mark in the military, that's kind of, you either got to do 20 or it's time to get out. And so really was a pivotal point for me, and I asked myself, well, why am I here? I happened to be asking myself that question after Afghanistan had closed. Iraq was, if for those of you that don't know, combat operations in Iraq are like slow, and being in a job where that's what you want to do, my why of wanted to be on the mission, wanted to do that kind of started to fade to the background. And so I didn't have the why to re-enlist, but looking back on my military career, my why is I wanted to be the guy that was there so that I could take care of my people. And that's really what kept me there. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Beth.
For me, my why is always, to serve my community. So I think I did that in my military service, and I continue to do it here. I use a lot of the same skill sets that I used in the military here. Use my time, talents, and energy to kind of enrich life here in South Bend. Another why for me is, kind of similar to Tyler. I really enjoyed mentoring. Tyler and Rob were enlisted. I was an officer. I felt like my greatest joy was the corpsmen, the enlisted members. You were working beside them, and some of them, much like their story, they didn't go to college, didn't have the means to go to college. But oh gosh, I loved working with them, and I felt like I was their education beyond college. And many of them went back to school and did things. But you were training them as a Navy nurse to go into remote locations with special forces, on a sub, overseas, on a destroyer. So that for me is to lend my time and talents so that they could be successful. And I mean, you guys aren't there yet, but I've had so many come back to me this year. One of my nurses just got her PhD, and she said, you were there, you were a catalyst in that. I was asked to be a retirement speaker. I'm like, I knew you so long ago. She goes, but you changed the trajectory of my life. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then somebody else just got promoted to captain. So, I mean, I think it's really, eventually you take off your uniform and all your medals and ribbons, but it's the impact that you left on their soul. I always call it leaving fingerprints on the souls of others. So you're not there, you're getting there, and I'm sure people will come back to you. But for me, that was important to me, and being that catalyst in the life of someone, that they might become more of who they want to be, and your belief in them.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Beth, for sharing that. Rob?
Pretty much the same as these guys. I mean, they summed it up. It's just selfless servitude. You want to do the job. You work every day so that you can be prepared to do the job. And then you don't want other people to be at risk if you're not perfect. You don't want people to be subject to some of the stuff that we see, so you just want to keep going. And like for you, like what you said, you just want to keep deploying. You want to keep staying out there, and eventually you just get in the grind of, okay, this is what I'm doing now. And for me, like my why was always like my wife, my brothers, and my family.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that, Rob. I just jotted down a couple things as you all were talking, and they kind of converge on this theme. Tyler, you mentioned people. Beth, I love this quote, or this way you think about phrasing it, leaving fingerprints on the souls of others. That's beautiful. Rob, your comments about selfless service, and for me, that it kind of comes back to this. There's almost like an unknown impact that you're having at the time you are serving, as a mentor to those that you may never know, right? Beth, you mentioned some of those folks come back to you now, and that's such a blessing that they do come back and they do recall the impact that you had. And Tyler and Rob, you've had that impact on people as well in your times of service, whether they come back to tell you or not. That's an unknown, untold impact of mentorship that all of us bear the responsibility of contributing to, because it was there for us from others when we served. Like, we could all probably sit here and tell stories about mentors that we had, and if they were in the room, it might be the first time that they were hearing it, not knowing the impact they had on our lives. So thank you for sharing all that. How about a round of applause for our panelists before we open up for Q&A?
Yeah, how about that? So, yeah, and I think just to add to that, I think for a lot of us, we have different reasons for why we may start to serve, but I think there's something to be said about towards the end of service, when we're all getting out around the same time or different times, our reason for serving actually changes, and it kind of morphs over our time in the service. And I think we speak more in unison of why we served at the tail end of service more than we did in the conception of service. So that's something to be said about that as well, and that team environment that we all share. So yeah, you guys flew through those questions, which military prides itself in brevity. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised there. But we do have about 20 minutes for questions. So if anyone wants to start. Anyone got a question? I'll come around to you. Anybody?
There you go.
I don't have a question, I just have a fact. I went through Army ROTC here in Notre Dame.
Okay, good.
And in my senior year, we had 948 cadets.
Wow. That's a lot.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Anyone got a question? No offense.
So thank you again for all the service and everyone else here in the room for Veterans Day. I'm honored to continue serving in another capacity now with veterans. And my concern or question is, I want to first give accolades and acknowledgement to the Notre Dame program where they have for incarcerated veterans classes that can be taken. I know one who served with distinction and honor, was a paratrooper, did 20 years with 3 different deployments, and unfortunately has found himself in a situation incarcerated, and I continue to stand by his side as I do every veteran. But I would like to know what other specific programs we can do with the VA, with the law here at Notre Dame, to help to serve those who are incarcerated, sometimes wrongfully and sometimes, as a unfortunate consequence of some decisions made after they've come back, and what we can do to help them in their, not only with continuing their education, but also in the process of perhaps still continuing to have them during their stay and to even possibly be resolved quicker.
I could start on that, and I know Professor Stone probably could touch way more in depth than I'll be able to as a first-year law student. I know for Michigan specifically, and what I saw before I started school here, there's a pretty big initiative rolling out, I think in most states, where there are veteran treatment courts that are rolling out, and basically it's for, I believe it's for nonviolent crimes. So any type of crime that doesn't have like a victim, it's a court that issues a probationary process that's aimed to be rehabilitative and building measures into that. I would also add that story, the dealing with vets 20 years, all that, and ending up in incarceration or ending up with huge problems, it's very common. I come from a career field where it sounds cool on paper that I have like 200 skydives and 3 deployments, but I'm the junior guy still. There are supervisors of mine, one specifically is a Silver Star recipient, multiple-time Purple Heart recipient, 13 deployments. You name it, he's done it. 6 months after he got out of the military, he never applied for VA benefits and he was homeless. And I'm very lucky, or we are very lucky, our career field has a foundation built into it because it's such a small community. We found out the foundation stepped in and really helped to get him on the right track. So I would also add, outside of the VA, there's a growing consensus that nonprofits just seem to be coming out of the woodworks. And I think there's a gap where the VA can't touch that nonprofits are starting to step in. So I would direct towards nonprofit resources as well. Yeah.
Thank you for that question.
I would also,
Go ahead, yeah, Beth.
I would also add that, there is a VA rep at the local congressman's office. Her name's Erin. I mean, just as another resource. I don't know if that'd be helpful, but it's supposed to be there. Oh, you know Erin. Yeah. Yeah, she's wonderful. I mean, she's very, I've talked with her and she's very approachable, and they do have a lot of veteran services and fairs and stuff, so that's an option. Okay, Aaron.
Okay,
Yeah,
next question. Thank you, Caleb.
First of all, fantastic panel. Second of all, Tyler, fantastic answer, so good job on that. So I'll ask a really broad question, something of a buffet, and you can take whatever parts of it that you want, whether that be one, whether it be all 3. But we talk about bridging the military-civilian divide, right? There's this idea of just in America, as a percentage of the population, veterans seem to get a smaller percentage every year, and it's just easier to come across people as the decades roll on who have no experience with anyone who's even in the military, right? I've had some students in my 10 years of teaching where this is the first time they've ever even thought about the military experience or even talked to a military member at all. And so, speaking broadly, I guess I'll ask you a few questions. And again, take whatever you want. One, for the civilians in the room, are there any sort of misconceptions about military life that you would like to clear up? Or if you could pick one thing that you really want civilians to know about military service, what would it be? Also, what can civilians do when we haven't served to help out those people on active duty and those in the veteran community kind of on a societal level? So again, that was really broad. You can construe the question however you'd like. You can answer part or all of it or none of it, go in your own direction. But again, great panel. Thank you for answering these questions.
Sure. To answer the second part of your question, buy them a beer. They will really appreciate that, and it buys you about 10 minutes, and they can talk to you about all that stuff. Yeah. No, to bridge the divide, right, or bridge the gap. I would say every veteran is just like you, but that's just their job. So like for Tyler, like he just happens to be skydiving all the time. Like that's fine. He still goes back home. He still eats dinner. For me, I did a European deployment. I came back home. Everyone wants to know about it. It's like, okay, I still am gonna go surfing on Saturdays. I'm still gonna try and like go to Colorado and go skiing. All the veterans are still just normal people. And I'd say more times than not, everyone's pretty eager to share their experience, whether it was from combat controller, Navy nurse, intel, to like some of my best friends are cooks. Some of my best friends scraped the side of the ship for 4 years. Everyone's got great stories. But everyone goes home and they're still just a regular American.
Beth?
Yeah, I would say also, along with Rob, is listen to their story. It's a great way of honoring them. I mean, and thank you guys for all listening to our stories. In the Navy, they call them sea stories, and I always run into someone and I'm like, how long were you in? They're like, 2 years. I'm like, oh my gosh, you have so many stories. So listening to their stories, but I also feel like, my husband did a veteran presentation, and we serve the core values: honor, courage, commitment. A lot of us are, whatever the Air Force says, you kind of carry those into everyday life as well. And then when you know that you are working with a vet in most cases, or hiring a vet, they carry that ethos with them. And also, I always say it's the suit up and show up mentality. I am going to suit up and show up. If I give you my word, I'm going to be there. And if I'm on time, I'm late. You got to be there early. So that is kind of my thoughts of military. But I also agree with Rob. We're everyday people. We have hobbies and things we like to do. We need our downtime. We need our humor. So yeah, going along with yours, and I look forward to hear what Tyler has to say.
Yeah, so I can't emphasize this enough. Like, veterans are just people. Starting out law school, everybody's still like figuring out who everybody is. We're like 3 weeks into class, and we're at the library. Everybody's printing stuff, or my group of friends, we're all printing stuff at midnight, and we run into another one of our friends, and we're chatting. It's the first time I really talked to him. He's like, hey, like, you're a veteran, right? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, I had never met a veteran before law school. He goes, I didn't realize like how cool you guys are. I was like, what do you mean by that? He says, don't take offense. He goes, I always thought that like veterans were these like super rigid, like off-putting, don't want to like hang out with you people. He's like, you guys are like the coolest ones here. And it's like, we're just people. Yeah, you're going to have veterans that, just like other people, are not the type of people you want to hang out with. They're just not your cup of tea. There's going to be other veterans, whether they're a veteran or not, that you can be really good friends with. You guys have a lot in common. The military is the most diverse organization in the world. And so you're going to have all sorts of personalities, all sorts of motivations, all sorts of different backgrounds. So the same way that you would come into Notre Dame, the same way in like Find Your Friend group, veterans are the same way. So, yeah.
Yeah, just working off of that, I mean, diversity within the military is diverse as the country itself. It really is. People from all kinds of walks of life, different parts of the country. Can't say enough about the diversity of the military. And then second misconception, I kind of already said it, military prides itself on brevity. So if you ever receive an email that's really short and you feel like it's very punctual and maybe a little bit rude or passive aggressive, ask yourself, is that a veteran that sent me that email? Because if it is, that could just be a cultural thing. And then the other thing is, I think a lot of people think that veterans don't know how to think outside the box because, right, they're used to following orders and specific set of standing orders, instructions, and that couldn't be the case. That couldn't be further away from the truth. I know so many people or veterans who are just super creative people, think outside the box. Have you ever heard of the story Message to Garcia? So put it in your phone, look it up later. I can't recall the entire story right here on the spot, but it's basically when a military member says that, they basically mean get the job done however you see fit to do so. And sometimes that's within 2 hours. And you have to coordinate with 3 or 4 different people in order to get the job done. But our service members have been put in that situation time and time again, and they've delivered. So that's all I got to say. Any other questions?
Probably time for one more.
Yep.
So Mike, Ken, Tyler, Jen, Rob, thanks for sharing your information and your background. I'm wrestling with another issue, and that is transitioning from the military into civilian life. And if you look, and we're exceptional. I mean, we found our own answer here like Rob did, and coming back here, figuring it out and everything like that, okay? But I'm also looking at the data, and the data says something like 17% are experiencing depression when they come out of active duty, 16% are PTSD, and maybe 15% are thinking about suicide. So we've got to do a better job in terms of that first 3 months in that first year. I mean, Notre Dame is a great institution as far as support is concerned. And there is a program called Smart Start. And that program requires the VA to call a veteran released from active duty within 90 days, 180 days, and 365 days. Now, whether they answer or not, hey, that's another issue. But I'd like to know what you experienced when you transitioned out. Did that program start a couple months in advance? Was that available to you as far as your branch is concerned? And what suggestions you might have?
For my community from NSW, we were really fortunate that we had our own doctors, nurses, corpsmen, mental health professionals, whatever you need, we had it in our own building. So for me, I felt really fortunate that we could tackle a lot of those issues as soon as we got back from deployment. And then if anyone had those issues post-deployment, it didn't necessarily mean that you were off the team, but it just meant that we're really going to prioritize you getting back to where you want to be. I don't know if that answers your question.
So I actually distinctly remember, I just did a follow-up with my Smart Start counselor. So a little bit of background going before my first interactions with the VA. Similar to Rob, I feel like under SOCOM, which is the Special Operations Command, we kind of get treated like professional athletes. We get physical therapists, we have strength coaches, we have mental health professionals, we have anything and everything you could ever think to give, we kind of get pampered. And so getting out, you get all this treatment because it's finally time to say, I'm taking the kid off, it's time for me to get right. They start treating you, and to be completely honest, I had a bad experience with the VA the first time going there. So I get out, I in combat injured, multiple deployments, all this stuff, and the VA denied almost all of my disability claims. And so my first call with the Smart Start guy, I was skeptical. I was like, I'm done with the VA. The VA is like the worst organization in the world. And I got lucky, and I appealed through an attorney my disability claim, and most of my stuff was clerical errors. Most of my stuff was they didn't read through my medical records enough. And once I realized that the VA really, the people at the VA want to help. The VA as a system has its own safeguards. I started to lean on the Smart Start people. I started to lean on going to the VA clinic, because it turns out like they actually have some really good doctors there. So I will say, I think it's a good step. I think it's a good program to kind of help people get there. But I would also argue before it's the VA's job, the military needs to do a better job. I went through TAPS, which if you don't know what TAPS is, it's a week-long transition program where you get force-fed all the stuff that you supposedly need to know to get out of the military. You get an hour-long how to write a resume. You get 3 hours worth of how to apply for disability benefits. You get 3 hours of, you get all these other benefits so long as you apply, but nobody tells you how to actually do anything. And so while you're going through the process of feeling like you're losing your identity, taking the uniform off, being ripped from your closest friends as they continue on in their military career, you get basically just like this, here you go, figure it out. And I don't have the answer to that. Do I think that the military has the capacity to take and mentor each individual person at a whole new level, or to like actually coax them into civilian life? I don't know. But I do think the military needs to do a little bit better on that.
I mean, there are tons of resources out there, but I do agree that sometimes the military or the VA should be the ones checking in, because a lot of times there's the pride factor, or, but I do think, yeah, I had my friend who I did the retirement ceremony for, I check in on her all the time. So I think, yeah, it can be individual people, but I do think a lot of times we have Military One Source, there's all kinds of mental health, but often we're not reaching out to them. I think they do need to reach out to us and check in, would be my opinion. I know there was one.
One more right
Yeah,
now.
there's
Yeah,
one more
let's-
question here.
We had one more right
You,
here.
didn't you? Yes. Yeah, we all three of us, like,
It's like a student.
I know, exactly.
Yeah, we got a
so
student
much-
question,
Yeah,
so get ready.
exactly,
This is
exactly.
one of my students, so this
Yes,
will be a good question.
There you go.
Thank you so much for the great presentation.
Absolutely.
One of the things you mentioned was that when you were somewhere on site, like one of the people you always mentioned that this sucks, right? So like during those moments whereby something is very difficult, or you don't necessarily enjoy doing it, how do you know that like you're on the right path and this is your vocation, but it's just a tough time versus this is actually not your thing and you have to leave it?
That's a fantastic question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think you learn, when you get faced with adversity, you learn really quick what your why is. And if your why, and if you're in the right place to answer your why, you shouldn't let adversity overcome that, right? And there were, again, going through training, my class started with 40 people and 3 of us graduated. There's 37 of us that either A, they weren't in the right place for them, they weren't finding their why, or people got injured. And so when we were going through that process, we were at the point where most of the people knew that this is what they wanted to do. And so when you get faced with that adversity, it's really easy to find like the humor in the situation, because everybody wants to be there, everybody's part of the team, everybody wants to keep moving. And I think that's kind of the beauty of the military, is that everybody's there because they want to be there. Everybody's working towards the same purpose, and when you have that cohesive unit, like no amount of adversity can overcome the fact that like I got my group of people, and we're gonna take on whatever may come. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can add to that. For the like, this sucks, how do you get through it? For me, I found like finding mentors, and this is transferable for us, like all of us as students as well, like finding mentors that are doing exactly what you want to do is really important. Finding good mentors, people that you trust, because that's 10 years, 20 years in the future that you get to look at and be like, okay, well, they went through this finance class that I don't want to take. Everyone doesn't like this professor, but it just sucks, but you got to do it. And it doesn't matter, just push through. At the end of the tunnel is your mentor's life. And if that's a life that you want, then it's worth embracing, right?
Thank you.
Great question. I think that'll probably wrap it up. Okay. Well, let's give our panelists one more round of applause. Thank you for spending time with us today. You gonna take us home?
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Ken. On behalf of the Office of Military Veterans Affairs and the O'Brien Notre Dame International Security Center and the entire Notre Dame community, I want to express our deepest gratitude to our panelists, Beth Weber, Rob Parkhurst, and Tyler Beamish. Your willingness to share your personal stories, motivations, challenges, transitions, and ongoing commitment to service has provided our students, faculty, and staff with invaluable understanding of what it truly means to wear the uniform. As a small token of our appreciation for sharing your time with us today, I would like to present you with a piece of Notre Dame to take with you. I have for each of you an OMVA hat co-branded with our Notre Dame monogram. If you could pass those out for me. Thank you. So thank you again to everyone for joining us this Veterans Day. We hope you leave here today with a deeper understanding and renewed appreciation for our military-connected students, faculty, and staff. Have a wonderful rest of your day.